Tech News Weekly is sponsored by Hover.com. Go to gfu.hover.com and get 10% off your entire purchase. FreshBooks. FreshBooks is an easy-to-use online invoicing service that saves you time, gets you paid faster, and makes you look professional. Get started completely for free at freshbooks.com. And by Audible.com. Get a free audiobook by going to audiblepodcast.com/GFQ.
Starting Tech News Weekly in 3, 2, 1.
Welcome everybody to Tech News Weekly. This is the show where we wrap up everything that happened in tech for this week. I am Andrew Zarian. I'm joined by Erik Lanigan, as I am every other week. How you doing, Erik?
I'm good, Andrew. How are you?
Good. And, of course, Sunkast. His internet's a little rocky, but hopefully it stabled out. How you doing, Sunkast?
Hey, what's up? Hopefully it'll stay stable.
Yes, hopefully.
I just saw it disconnect on IRC, so...
Again?
It's a little frustrating.
Yeah, listen, it happens. A couple weeks ago, before we go into the news, I had an issue with Verizon, and on the show, I ranted and raved about how Verizon was refusing to give me a updated speed increase with a contract. They were telling me that there's no contract to offer. I'm going to drop this. There's no contract to offer, and they would have to charge me twice as much for the package. I didn't understand. It made no sense to me. I went back and forth with them. We did the show. I posted the show, and I put hashtag Verizon, and I tweeted to them, and I tweeted the show back to them. They contacted me, and they said, let's work something out. Today, they called me, and they upgraded my line with a contract, and I think her name was Heidi from the Escalator Services told me that whoever was dealing with it was totally wrong. There's no such thing as not offering a contract.
Well, then that's good of them to get that information out to people in the media so that they can then tell that to all of their people who previously thought that Verizon was bad. So, I see this, this is not an uncommon thing now that these companies will come back on Twitter and extend far more gracious customer support than they do to people on the phone or to the average customer. They extend it to people of influence. I think it might be a little bit dishonest if as a regular customer they told you that you couldn't get the deal, but as a person who's influential they told you could. That may be manipulating the press.
See, this is the thing. Now, I don't know. According to the person at Verizon Escalation Service, whatever it was, she said that they only service they do not offer contracts for is high-speed internet, which is DSL. Verizon Fios, on the other hand, is offered with a contract to everybody.
Because no one thinks of Fios as being high-speed internet.
No,
that, of course, only means DSL.
Of course. Nobody considers this high speed. According to the first woman that I had spoken to that really didn't know what she was doing, she said that I gave her two different zip codes. I have a house a mile away, and I have this this one. I gave the house's zip code that was a mile away, and they said that's perfectly fine. That qualifies for a contract. I gave my zip code. It did not qualify for a contract. So I don't know who's lying. I don't know if one is covering the other one up at this point. Because technically, that would be wrong to give me what I was asking for because I do a show. So Erik is kind of right with that.
And yet they do that.
Yeah.
And if they don't, let's just say if they don't, because this has been a big thing, over the last few years, that now you have these companies that are thought of as, companies that don't listen. They do these little things like Comcast has Comcast Cares, and they listen via Twitter. Well, now, even if they are responding to people who aren't necessarily media folks who are doing reviews and publicizing things, why have a route that bypasses the standard customer service? Either you provide customer service to all your customers, or you provide them to 2 or 3 people who just happen to find a special channel that only few people are using. It doesn't seem very fair.
I don't know.
Well, that's the exact problem that I've had with Comcast, because I've dealt with Comcast several times with her phone, and I'll tell you, I get so much better customer support over Twitter than I do over the phone. The people that are on Twitter actually have more power than the people that you talk to on the phone do.
I think they all have the power, Sunkast. I think the point is that when you're on Twitter, you're publishing it to hundreds, if not thousands of people. When you're on the phone, you're only on the phone with one person, so better for them and it's smarter of them to do damage control on Twitter.
This tweet may be monitored or recorded for quality assurance purposes.
By
Your
the way,
tweet is important to us. Please remain on the Twitter.
para continuar en español, I used to do the Time Warner Cable rap all the time. But I did want to give everybody an update because people have been asking me what happened with the line. So we just updated our second line to 25 by 25 FiOS, which is phenomenal. And we'll see what happens. But that ends that story. And now I can move on, and I don't have to be angry at Verizon anymore. But I do want to talk about a couple things to get into tech news. I want to go into the Apple story. There's a couple Apple stories, but I do want to talk about OS X Mountain Lion being announced early this week. It's going to be 10.8. I guess they're staying with the lion theme. I guess this is what they're doing, right? They're going leopard, snow leopard, lion, mountain lion.
Sticking with the cats.
But they did drop the Mac name from it.
Did they?
Yeah, because they're not calling it Mac OS X anymore. They're just calling it OS X Mountain Lion.
Huh, that's interesting. That is interesting. I wonder what that means for the future of it. But
that actually goes back to Lion. They started doing that on their website, at least as of Lion.
Yes.
Let me see here. Yeah, they did do that with Lion. So this is kind of iOSifying OS X, OS X even more at this point with notification bars, better iCloud integration, AirPlay mirroring, a few security stuff here and there. The messaging service that everybody is able to get right now. You could download the beta as long as you're on OS X. You're on a Mac. You could download the beta from apple.com. Are you in the beta program, Eric? Are you interested to download the beta? Because I am
not.
I'm in it, and I have no interest in downloading it currently. Because I only have one
why
Mac.
is that?
Because I don't want to mess up my Mac. I don't have a test machine.
Then why sign up for the beta stuff?
And technically, if you're able to get a legitimate beta copy from Apple, don't they forbid you then from talking about it?
Yes.
Yeah. So you didn't say that.
Well, I don't have the copy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
But you are a developer in the developer program. It sounds
yes,
like.
I had paid the $99, and I can download it if I want.
Right.
Interesting that they're getting more iOSified with the operating system. I guess this is the transition, right? But this is the interesting thing is they're going to be Windows in the release date because apparently this is coming out in the summer. And they had initially said that they are going to slow down the process of updates for the operating systems. But I guess that's not the case because 2 years ago, Lion came out. No, it's 2 years ago, right? Lion came out 2 years ago.
I have to say though, I mean, it's tough to call this an actual.
I'm sorry, Eric. Lion came out over the summer. Lion just came out.
Yeah.
Wasn't it Snow Leopard before that?
Yeah, Snow Leopard came out 2 years ago, and then Lion came out last year.
It's tough to call this, though, a new release of an operating system. I mean, if you look at the feature list, it's basically 10 applications.
Right, and that's what I'm thinking is that it's just to me, it's a little bizarre. It's more like a service pack than it is a new operating system.
But can't we say that all of them have been service packs up from Leopard on?
I might not even call this a service pack if you consider that they're not even promoting any under the hood features. I mean, unless you explain that, Notification Center is under the hood, Twitter integration is under the hood, AirPlay under the hood. I mean, not like that though, like fundamental architectural things that might improve speed or whatever we're used to with operating system upgrades over the years, that no longer seems to apply.
Yeah, well, this has been one of the things that Apple's been doing, right? They give you less and less information about what changes are done under the hood with their updates. I mean, they did that with the last one. I mean, they said X amount of changes, but they didn't really specify what they were until it finally came out. And considering this is the first beta that they're releasing, I don't know if they're going to release too much information yet, or too many changes have been completed.
That could be. I just look at this and I think that it's an odd choice because to promote this as a really new product, because it really is just bringing your Mac up to speed with the iPad. It's providing a synchrony of both features and certain data like reminders, notes, calendars, messages, tweets, iCloud, Game Center. It's providing just, great, now my Mac is like my iPad was 2 years ago. The future.
Why do you think they're doing these small updates? Well, why do it in this manner opposed to, do the updates? Because they've released the Messenger service, which is a big part of this. They're making a big deal that the Messenger is the same integration as how it is with the iPad and the iPod and Touch and the iPhone. So now the same type of Messenger is on your computer, and that's a big feature. But then they've given that away on beta. Why couldn't they do that with the notification system where it alerts everything else? Like those are two major plays in the operating system, and they gave one away.
Right. It's almost like they're selling you bundles of applications as an operating system, which isn't necessarily bad. It just is a different terminology and a different way of we're used to thinking of an operating system. Look at the difference between Windows 7 and Windows 8. I mean, if you talk about Metro, they bear no resemblance whatsoever. It's a massive departure. Compare that OS 7, 10.7 to OS 10.8, and it's just a couple of apps.
I'm trying to see if there's any more information. Yeah, I guess it's the cloud integration and the integration with the iPad, where it's going to communicate better. I don't know, Sunkast, do you think this qualifies as an operating system change, or
No.
we are going to start seeing these? We are going to see these more and more because it's not these huge, robust changes that we're going to see every year or two.
The way I would compare this to is more like an application that you would download on the internet, such as Chrome or Firefox or Thunderbird or Photoshop, where you have maybe just these incremental changes. Like you have Firefox 7.1 and then 7.2, where they release these updates that have some new functionality added to it. Not a lot of stuff changed, but just a few functional changes to it.
By the way, I can't get Messenger to work for me. The new messaging service, it does not work.
The iMessage
yeah,
stuff.
Yeah. I had a couple issues. It wouldn't connect with with my AIM, and I just gave up on it. I'm going to try it again in a couple days, but I totally gave up. I didn't really want to continue.
It's interesting, the fact that they're making this more iOS-like. From the looks of it, they're just trying to make it look more iOS-like. It's still going to be largely Mac and OS X, but they're also adding elements, design elements, that is, of iOS. It's not necessarily iOS, it's iOS-like in design.
So here's the thing. Who's doing it right? If you look at what Apple is doing, they're playing it in a safer way because they're slowly adding these things that would be a little iOS-like. They added the Mac App Store. They added the Launch Pad, which kind of puts like apps on your screen. They're kind of slowly bringing these things in, while Windows 8 will be, here's our tablet OS on your desktop. This is it now. Sorry.
You know what I just realized? You know what just hit me about why this seems so unexciting? Looking at this feature list, this is iOS 4.
It is. Yeah. You're absolutely right.
Wait, was it 5?
iOS 5.
iOS 5. It's iOS 5. We've had this since iOS 5 came out last year. And it literally Game Center, Twitter, Messages, iCloud, Notes, Notification Center. It's Twitter Twitter integration, AirPlay mirroring, feature by feature. It's iOS 5.
Yeah, it's iOS-like. It's just taking certain design elements and maybe certain shared features of iOS, bringing it in line with their Mac operating system is what it's doing. They're trying to complete the environment between Mac OS X and iOS.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, with more information, the more the time passes, the more information we're going to get with this.
It is a little bit like what Microsoft is trying to do with Windows 8, trying to develop an operating system that is basically the same no matter what device you use it on.
Yeah, but Windows 8 is a big change. I mean,
from what Windows 7 is and what they've done in the past, I would agree. It's just a different way of going about doing it.
Yeah. I do want to go into the Spectrum stuff since both of you have been reading about this. Sunkast, do you want to start with the topic and then you and Erik could go back and forth? Because I know a little bit about this, but you guys know a lot more than I do.
Yeah. A lot of this stems from AT&T, and they've been complaining so much for the past year and a half about their Spectrum capacity, and it's just been really interesting to hear them still complain about it. Yet you don't really hear anybody else complaining about their Spectrum. You don't really hear Verizon, Sprint, or even T-Mobile, or even other carriers internationally you really don't hear anything about them complaining about, oh, we need more spectrum. We don't have any more capacity, so we need more spectrum.
Well, here's the thing. I do want to read this before we continue. The carrier's data traffic has doubled each year since 2007 expected. I mean,
Yes.
they got the iPhone, and they were very
this
dominant
is
with
according
it.
to John Donovan, which is the senior executive VP for AT&T's technology and network operations.
And then he said, over the past 5 years, data traffic has grown by 20,000%.
That is just crazy sounding, isn't that?
When I first
just unfathomable.
Well, when I first saw that, I thought it was a mistake that CNET had made. CNET publishes, but they did update the article, and they did not change that. So I guess that is true. 20,000% over the last 5 years. I guess that makes sense considering you're going back 5 years to when the iPhone was not on.
Well, there's something kind of fishy about that. There's something kind of fishy about all of AT&T's growth statistics about mobile bandwidth because they actually, someone there at AT&T, some high up said 40% growth year over year.
Yeah.
Another one said 100%, and then someone else said, well, depending on what you're measuring, those two could both be useful. So now the 20,000%, I don't know how to get to that.
Well, somebody was measuring spectrum usage, and that is nearly impossible to measure.
That's just this is my whole point is AT&T screaming about their spectrum capacity and use, and it's like, well, how do you measure that? How do you know that they're at their capacity, that they're using this much, that they need more spectrum? How do you convey that to consumers who don't know anything about spectrum? They probably have never even heard the word spectrum before, other than it being tossed around in these tech stories. They don't really understand what spectrum is and what capacity is. How do you measure this? What's used to measure it? And all those variables, because it's very highly technical. I spent a good deal of today. I spent like an hour or two reading about spectrum use and making it more efficient. And from what I can gather, it's one of those things where it's situational. There's no set metric to measure your spectrum use. Yes, there are spectrum analyzers. This is all an analysis. You actually have to perform a study and use varying methods of analysis to actually determine what the network capacity is at and how much it's being used. There was a couple articles that I even read that where it said that most of the time spectrum isn't even being used.
What was that, Eric?
I was going to say, Sunkast, what type of site or what was your source on that about the measurement? Because that's a very different argument than I've ever heard before.
I'd have to go back and look at it. Let me see if I can find the document because I did.
Because that's okay. Because what that sounded like to me. Because I spent some time researching this too. We got a couple of spectrum geeks on the show today, and what I was finding was really nothing like that. It's really more of that the so-called spectrum crisis, the spectrum crunch, is basically a lie engineered by AT&T and Verizon to amass vast quantities of more spectrum. I have more details to give, but what do you think about that?
But let me ask you, AT&T has been very slow to deploy their 4G, their LTE. They've not been doing that great of a job. They've invested over $20 billion so far, and they're expected to spend another $20 billion for 4G LTE deployment, but they are very slow with the deployment, and they are not at the level that Verizon is at. Why has Verizon been so successful at deployment with LTE, and AT&T is now currently screaming that they need more spectrum? And that was the whole point with T-Mobile, right? I mean, that's kind of what they wanted.
The point is that you have Verizon and Sprint, which uses CDMA, and that's inferior technology in terms of the network capability, in terms of GSM, which AT&T is. So why is it that Verizon, which uses the inferior technology, handles their traffic so much better than AT&T, which is using a superior technology for their networks?
Does it go down to management? Does it go down to deployment? Does it go down to hardware? What does it go down to?
Well, no, wait a minute, guys, because I think it goes down to that's not actually the true facts. I think that's what AT&T tells us, but the analogy that I draw is if you go down to your electronics store and you go to buy a certain type of hard drive, let's say anything. I mean, you'd be saying Target or Walmart. I don't care. You go down to a store, you go to buy something, the shelf is bare. They're out of the product. The clerk tells you, well, we've got a bunch more in the back, but I just don't feel like getting it. And you say, well, you don't have any here. I came with money in hand ready to buy your product, and there's nothing on the shelf. And he says, hey, don't blame me. Blame the guy who just walked out of here with 10 of them. You're like, but you've got more in the back. You could just bring them out if you cared to do that. Oh, too bad. Blame the guy who just bought the last one off the shelf. That's what they're saying.
Yeah.
Because all these companies have, I believe AT&T, it's either AT&T or Verizon, depending on how you measure and whether you're talking about all spectrum or specifically mobile communications. AT&T, by some measures, has the most amount of spectrum of any company, of any single entity in the United States, maybe even in the world, or United States, I guess, because it's just here. Huge, like vastly bigger than Metro PCS or anyone that goes down the line. Sprint, T-Mobile, you name it. They've got the most. So how is it that the company with the most spectrum is in the greatest need of spectrum? I think there's no way to answer that question in the affirmative without being a politician who is just hearing this straight from the mouths of these lobbyists and industry groups, rather than actually doing the science and looking at the statistics and data behind it, which they clearly aren't.
Well, part of my reading is that, that's the thing, is that it's such a technical field that there's no one single way to measure spectrum use. It's basically, you can use whatever devices you want. You can have an RF engineer come out, do whatever study you want, and make the study sound whatever way you want it to sound.
Yeah, well, there is a way, and I'm not saying this is I'm not saying you got this wrong, Sunkast. I'm saying that the article that you read, which sounds probably the science is all accurate about that. I think probably the guy who wrote that in good conscience or in good faith just takes at face value or believes what the public is saying. I was reading some articles from, I think it was from DSL Reports and GigaOM. Some people have picked up on this, some broadband reporters, and they're talking about how the press has just furthered the idea. We remember this even from this show, I think, that when the T-Mobile deal fell through, everyone's been saying, well, AT&T's got to buy somebody because they need spectrum. Maybe they'll buy Metro PCS. Maybe they'll buy Leap Wireless. Maybe they'll buy this or buy that. And Verizon just bought the spectrum from Comcast. And just the other day, there is a payroll tax extension in Congress right now, and slipped into that said that they're going to auction off the beachfront property, the really penetrating electromagnetic spectrum waves that go through walls, your UHF and VHF TV
Yeah, I think
spectrum.
I did read that they did pass that.
Yeah, they're going to auction those off. The public airwaves, which used to be free. Back in the broadcast days, TV, radio, you apply, you say, I want to build a station. Can I have some spectrum? Yeah, here you go. Here's a license. Just renew it each year. Okay, good, thanks. Now they're going to take that was free and sell it for billions of dollars to Verizon and AT&T specifically. And the littler guys, Sprint, Metro PCS, they said, now wait a minute, FCC, that already seems suspect. Privatizing the public airwaves like that, locking it up, for profit, and where these guys just hoard it and trade it and don't actually build it out or use it.
Yeah.
And they said the one silver lining about that was the FCC had previously said, we're not going to let Verizon and AT&T bid because they have the most spectrum of anyone else in the country. So you guys are good. We're going to let the other guys compete because, hey, maybe competition is good. And now all of a sudden, that's not the case. And now all of a sudden, we're going to make new jobs. AT&T having twice as much spectrum than everyone else will create jobs somehow. And it's just a lie, and it's based on completely faulty science and some really bad moves by AT&T and Verizon manipulating the press and the industries and all this stuff.
I mean, this is exactly what happened 30 plus years ago with AT&T. They dominated. Instead of spectrum, you're talking about telecommunications 30 years ago.
Worse. It's far worse.
It's far worse, yeah, because this is the technology of the future.
Yeah,
Well,
no, I
even that,
completely agree
it's
with
far
you,
worse
Erik.
because there's no regulation. When AT&T was a monopoly before it broke up in the 80s, it was a regulated monopoly. There were things it couldn't do. There was disclosure it had to provide. There were business practices it had to adhere to. That's all out the window. And the new AT&T of today is just flying by the seat of completely unregulated. No one's watching them. No one cares what they do, and everyone's just writing them checks.
Yeah.
Give
By
them
the way,
spectrum.
I did read an article. I could swear to you it was DSL reports. I'm not too sure. I read it just today that Verizon is claiming that they have plenty of spectrum and they don't need any more spectrum.
Right.
That
all
still
these
goes back
guys,
to my
they
point where it's
haven't
like-
built out their spectrum. They've got all this LTE. They're not building. AT&T and Verizon, when you look at I don't know about Verizon, but I remember AT&T when they had an earnings report last year, and people dug into this stuff, the broadband reporters, and they showed how year over year AT&T invests less as dollar amounts. They invest less each year in the deployment of the network. And then you see articles like a Washington Post article blaming Siri, Apple's iPhone Siri, for being the bandwidth hogging the roads for the rest of us. and the public pays for Apple's bandwidth usage. No, that's not true. The bandwidth does not cost money per bit. It costs money to deploy, but you take in money. That's why you charge a subscription fee, to get money back.
Yeah.
If the more subscribers you have, you can charge them for the data they use. The more data they want to use, the more capacity they need. The more capacity they need, they're paying for it, so you build more towers. They're taking the money, they're not building the towers. Instead, they go to Congress and say, we're out of spectrum, which means that they have the monopoly on spectrum for the entire country.
It's exactly like, the kid with at the
It's
park.
an artificial supply and demand situation is what they're doing, is that they're artificially creating the demand for the data because they're not creating the infrastructure needed to supply what the consumers are asking for and paying for.
Exactly.
Yeah, this is interesting stuff. I'm really curious on where this is going to be headed.
And it's not only that; it's the fact that when you look at everything that AT&T says, there's so much misinformation, so much conflicting information that it just doesn't make sense. They're the only ones that are complaining about a spectrum crisis when there's tons of alternatives out there that you can use to reallocate and alleviate your spectrum issues. And I don't see them doing that. All they're saying is we need more spectrum. We have to buy more spectrum. But what are they doing in the meantime to alleviate their spectrum issues? Because there's a ton of alternatives out there that you can use.
Yeah. Well, this also goes into the whole
They
other...
are doing something about it. They're raising prices. Not to get into a whole other issue, but they just recently raised prices. Now the $25 a month for 2 gigabyte plan is now a mandatory $5 more. The lowest plan is now a mandatory $5 more. When you ask why do I need, and they say, oh no, the price increase is to give you more. We're giving you more bandwidth. Well, how many people use more than 2 gigabytes? Only 5% of users. How many people got the price increase? 100% of users.
Yeah.
Let's talk about this throttling issue, because in the CNN article, it says, as implemented, the policy is vague and inconsistent. Offending users are told that your data usage is among the top 5% of users. Data speeds for the rest of your billing cycle may be reduced. But this is interesting because they say that it's not necessarily the top 5%. It's the top 5% of your area. So even if you're using only 1.5 gigabytes, it's 1.5 gigabytes is higher than everybody else in your area. So you're being compared to everybody else that uses a smartphone with data in your area. So what may be acceptable in one area is okay in another area. So maybe in another area, everybody uses more data. So you have a higher tolerance. It's a ever moving wall of where is the cutoff line.
I'll give you a perfect example of what they did. When I got my my Galaxy Nexus, they were doing double the bandwidth. So if you purchased double the what are they calling it?
So if you're buying a plan for
double
2
the
gigabytes,
data,
you get 4.
Yeah. So, but here's what they did. I'm on the 4 gig data line, right? I'm paying, I guess, $49.99 for my LTE 4 gig data line. There was a double your data promotion. But what they did, now my data is not 8 gigs right now. It's 4 because they were selling the 2 gigs for $49.99. So it's still the same.
Right.
So it's a big scam. So what they did, they raised the price for 2 gigs and they said, well, we're giving you an extra 2 to make it look like there's a promotion happening.
Right. And of course, if you don't use that bandwidth, what the hell have you bought?
Yeah, what did you buy?
What did they spend the money on? You didn't use the capacity.
It's so scary how they're able to manipulate the pricing and the data usage. They're giving you all the speed, and they're saying, well, by the way, you can't really use any of it. So we just want you to go check your email.
AT&T's users are using less than 2 gigabytes every month. How does that? I don't understand how that is straining their spectrum so much. It doesn't make any sense to me because
well, it's not.
In reality, 2 gigabytes is not a lot of data whatsoever.
Right.
Let me ask you guys, Eric, you had the iPhone prior to the 4, right? Like you had the previous model?
3G was my first, yeah.
Okay, so did you have unlimited data?
Yes, I do, and I'm still grandfathered into that.
Okay, so what did that mean? What does unlimited data mean?
Well, it used to mean 5 gigabytes, and now unlimited means 2 gigabytes.
Okay, because I had this discussion with somebody, and they said, no, if you were grandfathered in with the original unlimited, it's actually unlimited. And I said, no, that I don't remember that to be true, because I had unlimited with Verizon, and I had 5 gigs.
Right. Well, and regardless of how it used to be, this is how it is now. Even if it were 5 gig, or rather, even if it was 5 gigs in the past, it's now 2. This was a big story this week that now AT&T is throttling the people who even get to 2 gigabytes, as long as Sunkast was saying, as long as they are in the top 5% in their area, which is arbitrary. And unlike Verizon, who will at least, throwing you a bone here, if you connect to their network in the middle of the night at 3 in the morning, you're the only one on the network, they'll dethrottle you. AT&T won't be so kind. If you hit 2 gigabytes, you're slowed down to basically a 14.4 kilobit modem.
Yeah, this is
Which is to say you're kicked off the net. And I think that's what's so terrible about this. And that's what I wish more people were understood, that we have the, this is the Star Trek communicator. It does video, it does HD video, it does live calling in our pocket, connecting to the biggest servers and supercomputers around the country and around the world, just standing in a field. The internet is just bathing you in internet, and we can't access the network to make use of any of that technology because of these artificial constraints in wireless electromagnetic energy, which is
I'll give you another example, and this might be one of the main reasons why they're screaming about spectrum, why they're throttling, why they're putting data caps. This technology that we're talking about right now, we're talking about 4G, we're talking about LTE technology. This could potentially end the broadband issue in rural America. Everybody gets it. You put up a couple cell towers, it's inexpensive, and now everybody has extremely high-speed internet usage throughout the country. This was supposed to be the answer. When we were talking about LTE and 4G, even Verizon came out and said, "This is how we're going to buy
what it is."
Yeah, and this is how we're going to provide broadband to most people. It's much cheaper than running cables. This is what we're going to do. And guess what? They are not doing it. They're not building the infrastructure at a fast pace. And even with the infrastructure being built, you are capped at 2 to 5 gigs, which means nothing.
And this is what's funny to me, is that you're saying that if you're being throttled even at 2 gigabytes, what about those people that are paying for 5 gigabytes? So as soon as you hit that 2 gigabytes in your, or whatever it is, whatever the arbitrary number is in your location, you're going to get throttled, even though you're paying for 5 gigabytes of data. That doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah.
If
of course,
if I'm paying for 5 gigabytes of data, I don't want to be throttled until I hit 5 gigabytes.
Right. No one ever, Congress people, the ones making the laws, dealing with the FCC, they never just say, well, this isn't a free service. You do charge people a monthly fee. Can you not afford to maintain your network based on those fees? If not, why don't you charge a living rate? Why don't you charge the rate that would allow you to build out the network to give the customers what they think they're paying for, what they think you're selling them?
Man, it's gone up 20,000% in the last 5 years.
Yeah, unfortunately, the big telcos, and I would extend to cable, all these guys, the major communications networks are part of this little set of industries that just siphons cash and siphons the lifeblood directly from the government. And it's weird, and it's not fair to anyone who either tries to compete with them or use their services as consumers, or even just anyone in business. It's not fair to any other business.
Do you think that's going to change at all, or it's just going to continue to get worse?
That's one of the reasons I try to educate myself about this and be able to talk about it, is because I think a lot of it is just due to the obscurity and misdirection of, well, now we need spectrum, because like those articles were saying, suddenly everyone's saying, well, AT&T must buy somebody. The biggest tech blogs were saying that. And when you step back and you realize why, they have more spectrum than anybody, half of which is completely unbuilt out, unused. There's no reason for it. It's just, I can't explain why these.
Read a bunch of stuff today too.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
That's why I went ahead and read a bunch of the Spectrum stuff today too, because it's all right, well, how do we know any of this is true? How do we know anything AT&T says is true? Where are their facts? And even if they can provide facts, we know that they lie on their facts, as we've seen with the reports to the FCC during the T-Mobile merger.
Yeah, I do want to move on, because this is some interesting stuff, but we have a lot of other news to get to, and I do want to talk about our sponsor for a minute, and that's Hover.com, domain names made simple. Hover has just recently launched a Refer a Friend program. You go to hover.com/refer a friend. Between February 15th to the 29th, discounts apply for first-year registration, and it's some great deals. .me, 50% off. .co, 50% off. It's $15 for .co. .pro accounts are now $5. There's some unbelievable deals going on at Hover right now. If you go to gfq.hover.com, you get 10% off your entire purchase. These are the guys that I go to for all my domain registration. I have about over almost 200 domains at this point. I have like in the high hundreds and low 200s. I'm not even too sure at this point. Too many. I mean, you know everything that I have. And I have to because of the network, and I have to get all these names, and I have to protect the brand. But I also have a lot of personal domains. I buy a lot of domains, and I give it to people. I'm like, hey, listen, you got a kid? I bought your kid, a domain name. I just did it for my god kid. I bought her name on the domain. And I use Hover because they make it extremely easy. They're not like a lot of those other guys that are constantly going to upsell you. You think you're paying $15 for a domain name. By the time you check out, it's at $36. And you're looking around saying, what happened? Private registration is included. There's none of that certify your domain stuff and business domain stuff. None of that exists. Everything is included in the price. That's hover.com. Domain names made simple. Go to gfq.hover.com. You get 10% off your entire purchase or use promo code GFQ upon checkout. Why don't we talk about Android 5.0? It seems like it's a little too soon to be talking about this, but it seems like this is it. It's going to be called Jelly Bean. This is according to the Digitimes in Taiwan. I don't know if they're too reputable, but I guess you take it as with a grain of salt, right? I mean, they've reported a lot of wrong stuff.
Even they say to take it with a quote healthy keeping of salt.
Yeah, I guess they even got the expression wrong.
I think we're seeing how this is how rumors get out of hand. Because yesterday I saw this when it was like the first report of a report that linked to Digitimes, and the first people who broke it then said, "We're not really ready to trust Digitimes," and they outlined like 4 reasons why what they're saying is probably wrong. But then in the last 24 hours, I've seen the same rumor be picked up by Ars Technica, CNET, like all the big guys. I think even the Wall Street Journal now is talking about Android 5.0 coming soon, and they all say, well, but it's, a source that may not be true. But now it's true because everyone's read it everywhere. It now has become a truth.
Now it has become a truth. Yeah, I don't think we're going to see 5.0, which is Jelly Bean, in the second quarter.
Well, they were saying it was going to come out in the second quarter of this year.
No, that's impossible. I think they've misunderstood something.
That's the whole thing. It's like, how can it be true when they're saying it's going to come out so soon? And we just
had
2 months ago had ice cream sandwich given to us.
I think what we'll probably get is, I guess, for Android 4.2 or 4. Whatever. I think we're at 4.1 now. We'll probably get 4.2, and then they'll probably start announcing what they're going to do with 5.0. But here's the weird thing. They're saying the operating system for the next version of Android will be optimized for tablets. Isn't that what Ice Cream Sandwich is?
Yeah.
And Honeycomb was?
That's what 3.0 was.
Yeah, that's what Honeycomb was. They're saying it's going to do a better job with the smartphone tablets and Google Chrome OS, mostly handled by the company's network strategies. I don't know. I don't know if this is I doubt we're going to see this.
I think the rumor was actually planted by Microsoft or a Microsoft affiliate, like someone who makes Windows 8 tablets or something. Because if you look at what the Digitimes actually reported, the main takeaways, it was like Android, Ice Cream Sandwich, they're moving forward with 5.0 because Ice Cream Sandwich has been a poor performer. It has failed to live up to expectations. And then the second thing they say is they're encouraging hardware OEMs to make devices that can run both Android 5.0 and Windows 8 because they so fear devastation by Windows 8. Yeah, right.
Let me ask you something. What devices have come out with Ice Cream Sandwich other than the Galaxy Nexus? Nothing, right? I can't think of anything like offhand, like major phones that have been released since January that have Ice Cream Sandwich.
HTC did come out and say, I think it was HTC at least today, came out and said that they are going to release ICS to more handsets this year.
Yeah, but we haven't really seen a full deployment of this. I mean, nobody has Ice Cream Sandwich.
The problem with Android is that they come out with these new versions of Android, and it takes so long to get them that it becomes irrelevant whether or not you get them, because by the time you get them, it's old tech, and they already have 5.0 out.
Yeah, I saw a review of the Samsung Galaxy Note, which looks intriguing, but they said it's running Android 2.3. Just came out.
Yeah, that's
the
the
same
problem.
as the Kindle Fire.
Yeah, the Kindle Fire is running an old version, but the Kindle Fire at least has its own UI. That's the whole thing about the Kindle Fire. And as Erik said, the fact that Digitimes is claiming that vendors are going to be able to add Android 5.0 to a Windows 8 based tablet or notebook. Why would anybody want to do that considering the Windows 8 operating system is optimized for netbooks. Tablets and notebooks.
Yeah, it would never be in Google's interest to push forward on a dual booting platform as a reference design.
They're dead in the water if that's the case.
Right.
If that's what they're relying on.
Nor do they
This
have
whole
anything to
rumor
fear
seems-
from Windows 8. They would never be afraid of it like that. And these allegation that Ice Cream Sandwich has been a poor performer, therefore they're trying to embrace Windows, is so untrue because Ice Cream Sandwich can only run, not even just is installed, can only run so far on 1% of all available Android handsets that are not available, but that have been sold. The market share,
Right.
Ice Cream Sandwich, 1%. You can't even upgrade it unless the company like Motorola makes a version for your phone. So it's not like people have just not been buying the new version. That's not even how the market works.
Yeah. Why do you think the slow deployment for Ice Cream Sandwich at this point? Do you think it has to do with the economy and the way the market is? I know Intel released information this week that they're not going to be releasing the Ivy Bridge processors. I think the time frame they had said it would be because of the slow sales of Sandy Bridge. They've kind of slowed down, and they said, well, we have the technology. It's ready. We're just not going to release it because we're not selling what we have right now. So we're going to wait till Windows 8 is released, and then we'll start deploying it. I mean, maybe it's coming down to the same thing where a lot of these manufacturers are not releasing the updates and not releasing the phones at a quicker pace.
Yeah, and it's interesting because in the days of the IBM compatible, and then you'd have a new version of Windows, and you just buy it and you knew it would run, it shows that we don't really have a similarly predictable architecture. As many drivers issues as we had with our hardware back in those days, it's far worse. Motorola, HTC, anybody, Samsung, they have to build a version of Android for each version specifically for that phone and that hardware, to the point that we're looking for. I think Motorola just released their release timeframe for upgrading their existing devices, including the Zoom and older devices, the Droid 2, to Ice Cream Sandwich. And a lot of those are saying like the end of this year, and many devices that you bought in 2010 are not even upgradable.
Yeah,
they're
none of
going to
them.
be locked
Wasn't
to
the point of-
2.2 or 2.3. And that's the case with most Android handsets. You can't even upgrade to the next version of the Android OS past about a year or so.
Wasn't the whole point of Android OS for manufacturers to be able to create these devices that they can easily throw an operating system on and customize it to the way they want? It was meant to be a very easy operating system to work with.
That's right. It was
Yeah.
supposed to be the operating system that carriers and handset manufacturers alike could customize to their heart's content and make a product that was not simply Microsoft Windows and not simply Apple iOS and wasn't simply a BlackBerry, but really customized.
It seems like
And
the only one that did that was Amazon.
Yeah, well, and Google, basically, it's been unsuccessful because it created huge fragmentation. It created one predictable product, which is the iPhone, and every other product, which is completely unpredictable and almost impossible to put a feature spec comparison side by side, handset by handset.
Yeah, this is...
Do you guys think that one of the reasons that they may not be so inclined to release updates to the new versions of Android is because they are coming out with so many Android handsets? Because even if you look at it now, it's like, why should we update and release and work hard on a new release for the new version of Android on existing handsets when we already have a new handset coming out with that operating system on it in a couple months or
Yeah,
so?
no, I think that totally has to do with it. The upgrading deployment has been awful for some of these devices. And I think it comes down to a couple things. One, the phone manufacturers sometimes are not quick to deploy it. Two, then you have to worry about Verizon or AT&T deploying it. So it's not this seamless, okay, everybody goes in, everybody could just download the update if your phone is supported. It really comes down to the carriers, and it comes down to the manufacturers. There's two people you got to go through. And the carriers really don't want anybody to upgrade the phones because they want to sell more phones. And the manufacturers are kind of in the same position where they want to keep Verizon happy or AT&T happy.
That's why I like the way that Apple handles all this stuff, is because they don't mess around with the carriers or any of that stuff. They're like, we want to release an update, we're going to release an update.
Yeah, that's the thing. Why haven't we seen that? I don't know.
Google could
It's a
do
little
it.
it's a little disappointing when you buy a new phone. First of all, I don't know why anybody's buying a phone. Why aren't they just waiting for ice cream sandwich? It just shows that the consumers really don't know much about this and they're just buying phones. They really don't
We
care.
don't even know when any new ice cream handsets are coming out.
I don't know either. That's the sad part, and I'm on top of this stuff. I can't really tell you when the next ice cream sandwich phone is coming out. And I bought this Galaxy Nexus, and I'll give you one example. There's been an update already for it. There's a new version of ice cream sandwich out there, and some people got it, and then they just stopped the deployment. That's it. Nobody else is getting it. Sorry. I mean, that makes no sense to me. I don't know.
That doesn't make any sense to me either, unless they found some serious bug. But then they should have said something about that.
No, but very hush hush.
And meanwhile, Apple's laughing all the way to the bank because they've still got one product that's easy to talk about. It's the iPhone. You either have the big one or the little one for the storage capacity, and then every year you either know that they're going to announce either a new iPhone and or new iPhone software.
Yeah.
And it's one or two upgrades, predictable, easy to talk about in plain English with no buzzwords, no acronyms, no obscure trademarks or like the Touch Wiz UI. I mean, how do you talk to mainstream consumers about that? Which is why iPhone becomes a mainstream product that latches on to people's consciousness and becomes the only smartphone that they're aware of or feel comfortable trying out or talking about.
RIM to release BlackBerry Playbook OS 2.0 on February 21st. I guess the five BlackBerry Playbooks that they sold will get the update.
Yeah, all 5 of them. That
All
Uber
5
Geek
of them.
has.
Yeah, I think Uber Geek in our chat room has every one that's been sold. And again, I love the device. I think the device is cool. I thought the operating system was pretty good looking, but they just could not sell the thing.
There are parts of it that are really great, but then there's parts of it that are really bad and makes it unusable for anybody else.
Yeah, so they're getting the update. It's
their dependence on actually having to have a BlackBerry smartphone in addition to the BlackBerry Playbook in order to use the BlackBerry Playbook.
So now everybody's going to get the update. How is the update going to roll out? Do you know?
Haven't got a clue.
And this is exactly what I'm curious about is the BlackBerry Playbook operating system, which is QNX, how similar is that going to be to the BBX operating system?
It's going to be very similar. There's going to be some changes in it. Nothing's set in stone right now as far as BlackBerry 10 is concerned. It is going to be based off of the BlackBerry Playbook and QNX, but in terms of exactly what changes we'll see, we're not sure yet because I don't think they're even sure yet.
Very interesting. We have one more story. Let's do Sunkast. You pick another story, and then we'll do our picks of the week.
Oh, I get to pick. That means I actually have to go and look at the notes.
You actually have to go and look at the notes.
You want to do something quick or long?
Let's do something quick.
Something quick? All right. Well, Microsoft released their new Windows 8 logo today. I don't know if you guys saw the image of it, but it's kind of cool. It's modernistic. It goes away with the red, yellow, green, and blue logo that they've used in the past.
The flag, right?
It's actually more like a window.
Yeah, the flag. It's actually very similar to the original Windows 1.0 logo. If you saw that.
I guess they're going with Windows 8. I don't know if they've officially said it, but they always used to say that was a working title, and I guess now they're going with it. I don't know.
I don't know. Do you think the name is stupid? I mean, it's really not the 8th version of Windows either.
Right.
It's the 7th. 7 is 6.1.
And the Windows 8 is going to be version 6.2.
Yeah. I mean, it just, I don't know. I think the name stuff is still silly. I don't know if they should necessarily keep the Windows name. That's been a debate that I've heard for a while. Do they have to keep the Windows name?
I think it's a mistake.
You think it's a mistake to keep it? Okay.
Too much negative baggage.
Yeah. It's very interesting. I see it. I mean, it's
well,
Windows.
The same thing as
at
Windows
an angle.
Longhorn, because Windows Longhorn was such a disaster that they could never use Windows Longhorn.
No, Longhorn would have been a phenomenal operating system. The problem was that Longhorn was supposed to be Vista, but the problem with Longhorn is that it was nothing like Vista. They just scrapped everything. It was supposed to have that new file management system. It was supposed to be totally different than what they were doing, and they put out Vista, and they abandoned half the stuff. That was the big problem. All right, so that was a quick story. Let's do our
Personally,
picks.
I kind of like the logo.
You do? Okay. I don't know. We'll see.
It's not bad. Not bad.
It's nice for a change because if you look at their timeline, I think the flag that they have now has kind of gotten old and tired, and they kind of need to do something different and more modern with the times.
Yeah. No, it's all right. I don't hate it. We'll see what people say. All right, let's do our picks of the week. I'm going to have to go last today. So, Sunkast, do you want to go?
Yeah, I can go if you
All
want.
right. Okay, you go.
Let me bring up my pick this week.
Because
All
I
right,
have to flip
you
your
got the lower
camera
third
off.
up too this week, right?
Yes.
Because you forgot last weekend.
Okay, here we go. Sorry, boss. There you go.
Hey, I got to make sure.
Yeah.
My pick this week is a Firefox and Chrome extension called Social Fixture. It's actually for Apple Safari, Opera 11, and Grease Monkey. Sadly, there's not one for Internet Explorer, but Social Fixture is a extension that does a whole lot of stuff for Facebook. If you use Facebook a lot, this is definitely an extension that you want to get. I'll bring it up here on my camera after I close this one window for you. And you can see that it has a ton of features here. One of the cool things, it has tab news feeds. So if you want to put your news and your feeds into different tabs, so you can have Farmville, Fishville, Frontierville. You can have your home tab, which is pretty cool. What sets this apart is that you can actually theme it. Unlike some other Facebook extensions out there, you can actually theme this and make Facebook look a little bit different. It has a ton of options and filters. I mean, you can really get granular control with this and determining, all right, well, which of your friends do you want to have some sort of a filter applied to it? You can get as fine as, this friend, I don't want to see any posts from him regarding Fishville. Or if you only want to hide Fishville, except for from one friend, you can do that as well. It's pretty cool. One of the things I really like about it best, though, is that I hate this new timeline thing. I don't like the two columns that they have. For me, it's hard to figure out the order of the timeline. So I always like to have it somewhat in chronological order, and that's just not in chronological order. What you can do with Social Fixture is you can actually make it one single column, which is really cool, and I really like that a lot. It's called Social Fixture, and you can get it at socialfixture.com.
Very cool. Erik, would you like to go next?
Certainly. Let's see if I can turn my microphone back on. I don't think I've done this one before, but tell me if I did. Did I ever do Jaxsta downloading tool?
No.
Okay, so my pick of the week is a downloading tool for Macintosh called Jaxsta, spelled Jaksta, and that's at jaxsta.com. I believe it's like $50. Let me see here. It's not inexpensive, but it is particularly magical because and they have it for Windows also apparently. What it does is it runs in the background. You can toggle it on and off, and it will monitor media that comes across in your browser, including FLVs and flashes that you might want to download. So if you want to grab a certain, I've done this for interviews, like grabbing interviews and news clips and stuff that I want to edit and cut up in Final Cut, rather than trying to capture using a screen capture tool that's going to drop frames and tie up your CPU and have to do conversion and stuff. In many cases, not what would you call it? Not encrypted ones. Like I don't believe it works with Hulu or Netflix or something like that. But for most FLVs and little clips of videos you find places, embeds from the NBC player or something like that. A lot of those, even HBO Go. I downloaded an interview, like a Bill Maher extra on HBO.com by accident. I went to play it. I think they did like their overtime segment, and I saw it started to download in the background, and I was like, whoa! It even found that. And you can download, the video that I made. I got a lot of my Justin.tv clips from downloading using Jaxsta. So it is actually a great tool, even tutorials and stuff that you want to just download and offload and watch later or put on an iPad or anything. There's always uses for this. Capture video of all kinds that is embedded, and that's at Jaxsta, Jaksta.com.
Excellent. That's actually a really good pick because we have to pull a lot of video clips here at the network, and that's a really, really good pick. I think
you'll like it.
Yeah, I have a Mac pick. I haven't done a Mac pick for a while. My pick is called Gemini Duplicate Finder. Let me see if I could pull it up here. Very simple application to use. It's in the Mac App Store. It's about $9.99. So what you do, you take a file, and you just drag the file, which I'm going to do it right now, so I'll show you guys. Let me drag a file in. Let me go to camera 3. There we go. Drag the file in, and it'll search for duplicate files. Now, the great part about this is that it's a very... I've tried a couple of these, and they are not that easy to use when it comes to finding the duplicates and then deciding which ones to delete. Sometimes it miscatches stuff. It's not very accurate. This is a very easy program to find duplicate files with, and the preferences... it's all in there. So it gives you the option to delete or not delete, and then you just pop in another file and you search there too. Today, just alone from doing this, I found about 3 gigs worth of duplicates in pictures and music. So I just went through, I deleted them, and it was very easy to use. It's Gemini, the duplicate finder. You can find it in the Mac App Store. Just Google it. You could just download it for the Mac. I have a big problem with duplicate files. Sunkast knows that.
Uh-huh.
I have like 15,000 files of the same image, and I'm like, I don't know which one is a good one. So this one does a good job. It's Gemini. And that's my pick of the week. All right, guys. I appreciate you guys both coming on today. I want to encourage everybody to go to Erik Lanigan's website, eriklanigan.com. Also follow Erik on Twitter, Erik Lanigan on Twitter. Anything else you're up to, Erik?
No.
That's it. All right, nothing else. Sunkast, I'm trying to switch the video back to you. So, any plugs?
Yeah, if you want, you can check out my website, amadeus.com, AMADAIS.com. It's a pretty cool little music blog website. I'm even going to go to it right now and see what my current post is because I've done a lot of posting this week. Anna Haya, which is a good friend of mine, she just had a new album come out this week called For Love, and I did a quick little review of that on there. It's AMADAIS.com. Amadeus.
Excellent. And you can go to our website, guysfromqueens.com. If you miss any number of our shows, we have about 13 shows here on the network. You can also catch us on iTunes. We're on Zune. We're on Stitcher. Radio on the go. You can listen live on Stitcher via the Stitcher app for your iOS or Android phone. Stay tuned. Behind the Counter is up next. Until next week, we'll see you later. Good night, everybody.